podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Okay, this is Factory of the Future, and I'm here with Alexandria Burek and myself, A.W. Schultz. And we are going to be talking today about AI, artificial intelligence. And just before we got started here, we were talking about how we're using it in our own personal lives. And I thought that we might, one, talk about how it can be used in the factory, in the automations, in energy, but a little bit is like how are we using it on our day-to-day basis? Because I've had a lot of conversations with other industries, and it's in a lot of companies they necessarily they have restrictions about using AI, and some of them haven't even used it yet. But for myself, like a novice, I can tell you that it is a phenomenal tool, and just the different ways that can be used and utilized, and offer you as a virtual assistant in many cases. So I'm gonna start with Alexandra, because she was sharing with me before she got started how she uses it in her real estate and more importantly in her fantasy football. So yeah. I'm going to turn it over to you, and because I think we use it in different ways, and I think well, I'm interested in finding out how you do it, because I think I might be able to apply it in different ways. So what are your thoughts on AI, or what do you use?
Firstly, love it. Thanks for a great energized introduction. So I've just started kind of challenging myself to use AI, like first try to use ChatGPT to do something, and then just like kind of let it organically unfold. So I was kind of down to the wire on getting some information to my real estate investing partners. And I was like, oh, okay. I was on my morning walk. I like to walk an hour. And I was like, let me just see what ChatGPT can do. So I took the list of properties, I pasted it into ChatGPT, and I was like, tell me the top 5 properties to invest in and why. And it gave me a pretty good response. And then I said, okay, tell me the market value for each property. Tell me why you think, how you came up with that, and provide me the links for your cited resources. And it did. And then I fact checked it on Redfin, and it was all like right within range, exactly perfect. And I was like, oh man, like this is unbelievable. So then I was like, okay, tell me new developments in this area. It told me all the new developments. I fact checked those. Again, incredible, like correct and accurate information. I then took the list of properties, which was in a PDF format. I used the data analytics tool. I pasted that in. I was like, take this and put it in Excel format, give it to me in these columns with these column headers. And it did that. So now it took what would have been something I would actually have to hire a virtual assistant to do, and it did it for me in less than 5 minutes. I was like, okay, well, maybe it could create a presentation for me. So I said, all right, give me a presentation on these properties, including this market overview. I want slide 1 to be this, slide 2 through 7 to be that, and close out with, these things. And I told it basically what to do, very specific. That's what I'm learning is the key, is you have to be specific in telling AI what to do.
Yes.
And it gave me a presentation that I used as this foundation and starting point. Now, of course, I had to like fact check things. Of course, I had to stylistically improve upon it, but huge time savings, huge advantage, especially for people who are new to presentations, business stuff. Like if you're more of a tactical hands-on worker and you're expected to provide presentations, written documentation, you can really level up using AI to do that and help you. I also sneakily have been using it to hit my macros for my fitness. I started today using it to help me with my fantasy football strategy and draft. And I'm so excited to see how that pans out because last year I was dead last, like worst team in the league. And I have a sense that this year using AI and ChatGPT, I have a real chance of winning. So pumped about that.
But hold on, let me challenge you a little bit on that. ChatGPT doesn't necessarily have the most up to date, because I remember in a presentation one time asked who won the last Super Bowl and didn't know.
Yeah.
So how can you use it to help you with your fantasy draft?
So firstly, I asked it how I could use it. That's the other key thing.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
I've
That's smart.
started having conversations with AI or ChatGPT and saying, tell me how to best use you to do X, Y, and Z. And then it tells me, and then I go and I follow its prompts. Yeah. So that's one thing. With fantasy football, it talks more about like the strategy. So how to pick where, in the first part of the draft, here's who the type of players you should target. In the middle rounds, here's the type of players you should target. I also believe that if you're paying for it versus using the free version, you get the most latest and greatest details. Because like in the market analysis that I had it do for my real estate stuff, it was within $5,000 to $10,000 on property values. And I would have to think that it was using current data to do that. The information on days on market, median house sale or value, all of that stuff was pretty well within range as well. So I think if you're paying for AI, you'll get the latest and greatest. And again, if you're questioning it or you're new to it, my best recommendation is to have the AI provide you the links to the sources they use to formulate their idea. So then you can go and decide if that's what you want to use or not.
No, that's actually really good advice.
Yeah.
That's something I've heard over the years, and I mean, I have a couple stories about it, and honestly, it's moved so fast that the stories might actually be old. But I was asked to speak at a maintenance reliability conference, and actually in Malaysia last year, and I spoke there, and I also did a workshop. And part of the workshop was I put the assignment out there. It's like, what can you use AI to help you with in planning and scheduling?
Yeah.
And I was telling a story, and because I was just at the other conference, and we were talking with all these project managers in IT, in transportation, and in manufacturing, and they were just getting the glimpse and getting excited about ChatGPT. And I remember it turned into like, it was a presentation, but it turned into like a working session. It was like everyone was just like, there's like 100 people in there. We're just all over this ChatGPT. And again, this is over a year ago, so things have changed then. But we were like stress testing it, and the presentation guy goes like, he says, it's not perfect, but from a project management running through the tasks of what goes into a project, it'll write you a plan, a script, in seconds.
Yeah.
But also you have to be cautious of it, because then I asked, because somebody just was being kind of a smart aleck. He asked like on there, how many cows have been to the moon? And it makes no sense. And ChatGPT said 8 or something like that. Now we know there's never been a cow to the moon
that we know
that I know of. And I was in Malaysia, and I was telling that same story.
Yeah.
And because I said, you can't trust it. And then somebody, he was a supervisor, came to me later, it could have been thinking about that riddle about how the cow that jumped over the moon.
Oh.
And I was like, that could have been what ChatGPT was thinking, because we weren't specific. Like you said, you need to be specific.
Yeah.
But just to kind of bring it round on that, but in that workshop, I was challenging them, saying that you can use ChatGPT to write up a project, to write up um, a maintenance schedule, and tasks.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, if like you said, the more specific you are, the more better knowledge it's going to give you back. And that's absolutely an absolute fact that I've known about. And what we did is, like, I was telling them, okay, give me an example of a PM. Okay, change out a gearbox, XYZ. And I said, put specifically what gearbox that is, maybe not serial numbers, but just the horsepower and whatever the ratio would be. And it will write you the task on it within minutes.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard this before, and I tend to believe it. I've heard the analogy is like, it's a good co-pilot.
Yeah.
It's also a good assistant.
Yeah.
Which it is, because you still need a subject matter expert to validate it.
Yeah.
Because there are some errors and mistakes that go into it. But from a efficiency standpoint, you use the term virtual assistants. It relieves a lot of the front end work that you have to do.
Yeah, it's incredible. And like, one of the things, talking about being specific, right? So like, I've used it to write my resume. I've used it to write cover letters. So everyone knows now that you need to provide a catered resume to, each job. So you could take the job description, paste that into ChatGPT and say, here's my current resume, rewrite it to, be more apt to, cater to that job. In terms of like what I've used it for dieting and like my macros, I'm like getting bored of eating the same things. I was spending hours calculating my macros, and I was like, okay, here's my macros. Here's what I'm currently eating and I like to keep eating. Find me meal solutions that fill the remainder of this macros. And it did. And then
I'm sorry, when you say macros, what are you referring to?
So macros are your proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. There's different ratios based on your current body composition that you can play with to help you gain more muscle, lose fat. And you're kind of basically tinkering with adding protein, subtracting fat, increasing your carbs, decreasing your carbs, dependent on your fitness goals. So I'm new to that space, and I decided to use ChatGPT to come up with recipes to fill that gap for me. So like I was like, give me recipes, 5 ingredients or less that require 15 minutes or less of prep time and are either Asian, Mexican, or Mediterranean cuisine. And literally some of the best recipes I've ever had in my life from ChatGPT. And then, you could say, I don't like that, change it out for something else. So there's just endless ways to use it, in my opinion. And I mean, anything from professionally to personally, obviously, as we've kind of covered.
Okay. And I told you that I haven't been using ChatGPT anymore.
Yeah.
I'm using another app called Claudia.
Tell us about it.
Well, as I was multitasking when we were talking, because I asked Claudia, what's the difference between you and ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Claudia said, well, I guess it's a she. We have different training approaches and underlying architectures. My knowledge cutoff is more recent. So it's saying April 24, compared with earlier ChatGPT, which is in the latest, at the time of this recording, on version ChatGPT 4. I have stronger capabilities in areas like analyzing images, coding, mathematical reasoning, and which is cool, because I've used it before to take a what did I do? Oh, I was showing my wife and I took a picture of myself. All I said is, who is this person? It didn't necessarily recognize who I was, but gave a description of this, of my demeanor and what I was doing. And I was a male, and I was presenting, and the conference I was at, but didn't know exactly who I was, though. My conversation styles tend to be more, I'm talking about what Claudia said. And I'm part of Claudia 3 model family, which includes different versions. Okay, so it didn't really say it's much, it's overly better.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be, more biased to it, but it kind of gave a good description on it.
Neutral.
I have found it, that, and this is a paid version I'm using, by the way, too. And
Yep.
I did have a paid version of ChatGPT that, I guess I just started using it, and, I've kind of started to like it a little bit more. But
You have a desktop app, or are you using it through the browser?
browser.
Okay.
In
I
fact, I
down
even looked for I haven't even looked to see if there was a desktop app.
Yeah, so I downloaded the app on my phone and I downloaded the app on my Mac. And when I was playing around with that, there's different GPTs. So there's an image creator. So I use that to generate logos.
Yep.
There's a data analytics tool where I told you I took the PDF, put it in there, had it convert it to Excel, and then use that way. So I wonder if Claudia is the same way. You should ask Claudia if there's a desktop version, and if it would be what the benefit of downloading it would be.
I will.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my newest hack, is asking ChatGPT or AI in general, how to best use it for a given circumstance. Now thinking about it, I have all these like personal finance goals, and I'm wondering, I'm going to use it for that. I'm going to try that out this afternoon or later today. And then secondly, I'm thinking about, I want to start a foundation to help children in foster care. And I think I may have prompted it with like, give me the fastest way to raise blank dollars, and have it recommend ways.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So, it's obviously useful in every industry. I love the maintenance program though. Like, that's so smart. I wonder what else you could do with that, like provide me a maintenance SOP or something like that, like based on the type of equipment you're expected to maintain and all that stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah, it saves time.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's the thing, especially in the maintenance communities, it's always a best practice to have a planner and a scheduler. And often, at least in my experience, often these planners and schedulers are former mechanics. They were turning wrenches for many years, and sometimes they just get tired of the grind. They want to get a normal schedule, and a lot of times they're very open to be moving into the position. But sometimes what they don't have is a lot of computer IT intelligence, and having ChatGPT just kind of just levels the playing field, really, because you still got an expert, but you don't have to worry about the grammar and all the other stuff that they might take for granted that they didn't know they didn't have. So
Right.
that's what makes it great.
And I think that brings an interesting, like you're saying, leveling the playing field. I wonder how HR could utilize that to give more people more opportunities, right? So
Yeah.
we all know that people who are college educated are sometimes shown preference in certain management jobs. Really, if you have ChatGPT, you don't need to be college educated. My opinion. We can do a whole episode on my wild thoughts on all that stuff, but I think that's one area, and I would love to get your take on how you see. I mean, when we were at that conference, there was a lot of talk about using machine learning and that to prevent failures and downtime. But I also wonder, like, how do you see AI and people working together? You'd mentioned Copilot, and having SME, as the other, end of that. So how do you see that shaping out in the next 10, 20 years? And what do you think, you have young kids, like, what do you think how do you think this plays into their education? Because I've asked teachers, are you encouraging people to use it? And they're like, we tell them no. And I'm like, well, you're screwing them, to be honest, because they're going to be behind if they don't know how to use AI. You don't need to use it to write your papers, but you could say, hey, make me a study guide, make me a flashcards, make me this, make me that, make me a fill in the blanks, or, you could use it as a study aid, but then you're just becoming much more skillful in using AI and that much more marketable later. So like, those are some of the ways, if I was a teacher or professor, I would be educating my team and students to use it. What do you think for the future?
Well, remember, this is the factor of the future. And I started off our first episode, we talk about Industrial 5.0.
Yeah.
Now, 5.0 is the combination of, we're taking all the digitalization from 4.0, the cloud data, bringing it down. But now we're talking about, there was artificial intelligence before, but 5.0 is also adding that human-centric approach, man or person and machine, and working together as cobots, which is, half machine, half person. But it's going to change the way that operations are going to prosper. And those that are embracing it, those smart factories that are out there that are open to it, it's only going to maximize them.
Yeah.
To your point, though, on the schooling, because I told you I'm going back to school right now, and I can tell you, and I've only been going back for about a year now, but I remember our first syllabus. It said, no AI at all. Can't do it. Don't allow it. Last semester, they say, I mean, even the professors say, let's just be honest. It's a great tool. It fixes things. It makes you better.
Yeah.
But the other difference is, I was also talking to another, I think she was a high school teacher, that they run analysis now on these papers that come back comes back 100% AI. But I question that a little bit, because I will use AI to proofread my papers, and it gives me I use Grammarly. I think I said it right. Grammarly, yeah. I use it all the time, and it'll give me suggestions, and I'm reading like, well, that sounds a lot better than what I said. But then it's got a new feature on that says check for AI and plagiarism, and it'll come back and say, well, it's 85% AI. Well, yeah, okay. I wrote it, it fixed it, but it improved it.
Then it came
but
back.
It was still my thought. I still approved that going through. So I'm still in debate about what's going on in the academic worlds, whether they are going to accept that or not. But I can tell you, I wrote it. It wrote it better. It's no different than having a tutor.
I wrote it. It did it better, and I liked it, so I used it, and it's fine. That reminds me of when I was going to school. Obviously, I was coming up, so I was born in 1992, and that was around the time when Wikipedia, like when I was growing up, you were not allowed to use Wikipedia as a source. You had to use a book.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing that.
Right? Wait, what'd you say?
No, I remember that. And they still say that too. But you can still go to Wikipedia and find out where they sourced it from and go there.
Yeah. And no one talks about that. But I think the people who are excited to embrace and use AI professionally are just going to leap and bound in front of their, cohorts who are afraid to use it, aren't using it, like you said, companies. I know we're coming up on time here, but one thing that I would like to earmark for our next episode, or definitely a future episode, is what you said, smart factories. And I would love it. Shoot, maybe we could use ChatGPT to help us come up with a episode plan. But I would love you to walk us through what a smart factory is, and kind of what some of the competitive advantages a smart factory would have versus I'll call it a conventional factory or a dumb factory, whatever you want to call it. But I think we need to talk about that on a future episode. That sounds really interesting.
Okay. I mean, I'm really just talking about automation, but but yeah, I can define that further.
Are there different layers though? Wouldn't there be different levels? Like I would picture some are fully automated, some are not. So we could definitely do a deep dive on that. I think that's worthwhile to explore and spend a whole episode talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
On that note, are we clocking out?
Yes, we're clocking out on Factory of the Future.
Yeah.
And stay tuned for our next episode, as we'll be going into smart factories.
Yeah. And for now, we're out like finished goods.
Yes. This is Factory of the Future. and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.